terrorism efforts and environmental protection. Worst of all, some economists had begun to warn that the recession might become something worse. Some, such as Nobel Prize winner Paul Krugman, feared the arrival of the First Depression, a double-digit decline in gross national product and high unemployment since the 1930s. Others worried of a lost decade of the sort endured by Japan in the 1990s. The Japanese had experienced a bubble in asset prices and subsequent burst in the same way that America's real estate and financial asset bubbles popped in 2007 and 2008. Although commonly called the lost decade, the decline in Japan had actually continued for almost 20 years. The specter of Japan's extended crisis and the suffering of individuals and families who'd lost jobs and homes and were losing hope made the Great Recession the most important problem the president faced. To borrow a phrase made famous during the 1992 presidential election, the first concern was the economy, stupid. Everything else, including national security, the environment, and even the nation's ability to provide basics such as education and health care, depended on the vigor of the economy. It would be the highest priority for Obama throughout his presidency. As he considered the challenge, Obama prayed for a change in Washington's ways, quoting scripture, "The time has come to set aside childish things," and calling for an end to the petty grievances and false promises, the recriminations and worn-out dogmas that, for far too long, have strangled our politics. The new president did not have to mention the attempts to remove Bill Clinton from the White House after a sex scandal, or the election of 2000, which was decided in Republican George Bush's favor in a party-line vote of the Supreme Court. Every informed American understood that political division had grown in recent decades, and the rift was pronounced in Congress. In 1982, two-thirds in Congress held centrist views as defined by the National Review. By the time of Obama's presidency, the centrists would comprise just 4%. Political scientists Thomas E. Mann and Norman J. Ornstein would place the responsibility for the polarization in Congress mainly on Republicans. Neither Ornstein nor Mann were known to indulge in partisan rhetoric. Mann leaned a little left, Ornstein a little right. Together, they were among the most moderate and widely respected political experts in the country. In their much-praised book, It's Even Worse Than It Looks, they concluded, "The Republican Party has become an insurgent outlier, ideologically extreme, contemptuous of the inherited social and economic policy regime, scornful of compromise, not persuaded by conventional facts, evidence, and science, and dismissive of the legitimacy of its political opposition." The drift toward the extreme politics noted by Ornstein and Mann had been a factor in Obama's choice of a running mate. The new Vice President, Joseph Biden, had served 36 years in the U.S. Senate, where he was perhaps the most well-liked person in Washington of any political stripe. Affable and gregarious, Biden had learned to be a senator in the time when centrists from both parties ran the place. He counted many congressional Republicans as friends, and it was hoped by some Democrats that he could help move the new administration's agenda forward on Capitol Hill. Biden was an old-school sort who thought the Senate was a truly deliberative body, and that compromise was one of the political arts. This is not to say that Joe Biden was a political Pollyanna. He had experienced the hyper-partisanship of House Speaker Newt Gingrich, who infamously orchestrated a government shutdown and was also the first House Speaker ever disciplined for an ethics violation. The Vice President had weathered the Clinton impeachment trial and acquittal, which had been achieved thanks to the votes of the few GOP moderates remaining in the Senate. A decade later, many of the cooler heads who had saved the country from a constitutional crisis by refusing to support one or both of the articles of impeachment were gone from the Senate. One who remained, Arlen Specter of Pennsylvania, told Biden to expect trouble from the GOP. Biden surely understood Specter's warning, but he couldn't know the extent of the opposition the new administration faced. Voters had given Obama a mandate and repudiated congressional Republicans by adding 20 seats to the Democrats' majority in the House and 7 to their majority in the Senate. However, Republican leaders in both houses of Congress were already pushing for a united front of opposition to everything Obama might propose. Although the strategy would become obvious as Congress voted on the president's initiatives, its political purpose would be revealed more gradually. In time, Obama would learn that the less than loyal opposition united against him so that its leaders could point to his failure when it came to winning bipartisan support.